going to be working on a 2015 WRX. We're going to be installing new headlights onto it. This mod is good for any WRX STI from years 2015 and up. Today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to uninstall the OEM headlights and get the new USR Auto headlights installed. We're going to start by taking off and removing the front bumper to get access to the OEM headlights. That way we can fully remove them. In order to get the front bumper off, you have a number of bolts and tabs on the top, as well as some in the fender wells and then a few underneath the front bumper. First, we're going to go ahead and start by removing all of the 10 mil bolts. There should be 5 of them. We are missing a couple, as you can see, but there should be 5, as well as 3 clips on the upper part of the bumper. Quick tip for you guys: as you take your bolts out, either keep them in a box or some sort of cubby where they'll be safe and you don't end up going all over your driveway to try and locate the bolts later on. So easier just to keep them in a safe place from the get-go. Once you have all of the bolts and clips removed off the top of the bumper, this trim piece here will just lift right out. Moving to the fenders, you will have one tab screw right here, which we've already removed, and that will be the only portion that you need to touch on each fender. So just go ahead and take that one out on either side. The last portion of removing the front bumper is going to remove and release all of the tabs underneath the bumper, which will be on the underside of this lip. If you don't have a front lip, your bumper would end here and you could just have a little bit easier access to that. Just pop out all of those tabs and that will free up the entire bumper and allow it to come off. On the back side of the bumper, it's important not to go and remove the bumper too quickly or harshly, because you will have wiring going from the main part of the car to the bumper you just removed. So be sure to disconnect your turn signal bulb here. And as you can tell, we have the fog light connector here, which would normally go there. So just make sure you remove both of those and then free up this to be able to work on it. Now we're going to go ahead and start removing the headlight itself. So we're going to basically just start from the top of the headlight and work our way around, removing all of the bolts and tabs. Once you've removed the 2 10 mil bolts from the top, you will notice this tab here. What you want to do is go ahead and take a flathead or some sort of a small flat object that you can basically tuck underneath this, and then you want to just lift up on it like that, and you should be able to just lift it out a bit and pull the whole clip out like that. Moving to this side of the headlight, on this black shroud here, you will notice also 2 10 mils. Go ahead and remove both of those. Moving on to the outer side of the headlight, you will also notice 2 more 10 mils. Go ahead and remove those, and then another one of those pinch tabs, same style that I showed you on the top of the headlight. Now that you've removed all of those bolts and tabs, this black shroud underneath will come right out. You can go ahead and just set that aside. Now you can see we have the entire headlight assembly removed. Essentially, you just need to unplug this one connector here. It is a little bit tough. What you need to do is pinch both sides at the same time while pushing down on this tab here in the center, and then just pull it off of the headlight assembly. And then once you've removed the connector, now we can throw this aside and move on to installing the new headlight. With the headlight fully removed, we can go ahead and just take a quick side-by-side comparison of the two. You can tell how much of a difference the black housing does make on the upgraded USR headlight. Again, they do share some similarities, so you still maintain the OEM style bulb setup, which would be a reflective housing on the high beam, and again the projector housing on the low beam. Next up, we're going to go ahead and start wiring up the new headlights. If we flip it around, you will notice that we have an H11 style bulb. This one is an LED. The halogen bulbs do come on this factory from USR Auto, so you can upgrade to a LED like we have here. Again, that size is H11. And then we're going to go ahead and leave the high beam, which is a 9005. With your headlight kit from USR Auto, it does come with a few different wiring assemblies. You're going to go ahead and grab one of each. We'll start with this module here. You will notice a connector on this side, and if we tip the headlight up a bit, you will see that this connector is already installed, whereas otherwise you would have this where you could put a bulb in and then basically delete this connector and install this bulb here. But because this connector is already here, we can go ahead and just slide this on and make sure it clicks into place. Next up, we're going to take this connector, which has a female end and then these 2 wires attached. Go ahead and take the black wire, and then on the module we just plugged in, we're going to just connect the black to black, and then we're going to connect the red to yellow wire, just like so. We're going to take the second turn signal bulb that goes on the bumper, and we're going to go ahead and plug this into this connector here, which again is just attached to that same one we just installed, so that should just click right into place. Next, we're going to grab the final harness, which has these fuses on the end of it, as well as the eyelid, which we're going to attach to the battery at some point. But right now, all we want to do is take this end and make sure you use the end that goes from the longest point, the longest wire here, because this is going to be running to the passenger side. Because the battery on these cars is on the driver's side, we're going to leave the connection on that side and give us enough length here to reach across the bumper. Now, moving back to this module, what you want to do is go ahead and try your best to line this up. You may have to switch it, but if I look here, it looks like the red is on this side, the black is on this side, and I'm going to try and just match that up as best as I can, and it should just fit nice and snug into there. Now with the factory harness from the vehicle, We can go ahead and take the final connector that we have and join those together, and now you'll hear it click into place. Again, we aren't running fogs on this, so we're just going to leave this aside right now. Now it's a good time, with everything connected, to grab the headlight assembly and go ahead and bring it over. And what you want to do is take this other factory harness here and plug it in on this side, and it will only fit one way, so you really can't mess it up. And now everything should be functional, but keep in mind we haven't quite wired up the daytime running light for the C light, so that isn't going to be functional just yet. We can go ahead and now turn on the passenger side turn signal, and now you can see that the C light is illuminating and working correctly, as well as our lower bumper turn signal. Now we can see that the low beam is working. If we flick on the high beams, those work as well. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that the hazards are working on both sides. So again, you can see that the C pillar is illuminating, the lower turn signal is illuminating. And one thing you'll notice is on the other headlight, this is the only thing illuminating, whereas the C light on this side illuminates as well while your hazards are on. If we go back to these connections here, what you'll notice is if we disconnect them, there's really no rubber seal. There are these plastic casings, but that isn't going to be very watertight. So what we want to do is actually just take some electrical tape and wrap both of these up, so that way no water or moisture is going to get in and affect the connection. Next up, what we need to do is, before we install the headlight, is figure out how we're going to run this from the passenger side of the car over to the driver's side. We could run this kind of just across the front bumper tray here. We could possibly run it near the front mount intercooler, or even underneath a little bit. But here at USR Auto, we like to do things very clean. So what we're going to do is go ahead and remove this plaque shroud here, which is held in by a bunch of these plastic clips. So just remove those if you intend to route it the same way we do, in which case we're going to take this off, run it across, and then reinstall this black piece. With the wire tucked along the bumper, we can go ahead and grab our new headlight assembly. Just make sure we're clear of anything here. Go ahead and reconnect this, make sure it clicks into place, and then slowly just fit the headlight back in as it was before. We've already put in our first clip, and we're going to put our two 10 mils back up here, so that way we can let go of the headlight and it will stay in place. Now with the black shroud that we removed before, we're just going to go ahead and fit this back onto the headlight assembly, and it should just sit in place like that. And then we can go ahead and put our 10 mils back into here, as well as the two 10 mils on this side, and it's clipped. Once we get the C light wired up to the battery on its own, then it will also act as a daytime running light. But right now, without it wired up, the only daytime running lights we have are the high beams, which illuminate on, I believe, a lower power level. So you will see this come on while the e-brake is turned off. We're basically going to go ahead and disconnect that for a little bit cleaner look on the headlight, so that way when we are just driving around with the daytime running lights on, the only light that will be on is this C light here. Underneath the headlight assembly, you'll notice this clip. It was mounted to the body right about there. You'll notice one pinch tab on the black part you can lift up, and then this will just slide out. And now what I'm talking about is covering these up with electrical tape, so that way these don't get any oxidation or moisture in them. Whatever you can do to prevent moisture from getting in, we'll just prolong it in case you ever decide that you want to revert back to stock and make the high beams act as your daytime running lights. I'm moving back to this harness, which again we've snaked across. We're going to go ahead and take this eyelid here and connect it to the negative side of the battery. It could go either underneath this nut here or underneath this nut. I think this is going to be a better spot and out of the way. So just go ahead and take this off. I believe it's a 12 mil. We're going to go ahead and put that eyelid underneath the nut and sink it back on. Next, we're going to take our two T fuses right here, and we're going to open up this fuse box. The two fuses that we're going to want to work with is this 15 amp and this 30 amp. Remember which one goes where. The 30 amp goes on the bottom, the 15 amp goes on the top. Take out the 30 amp for starters. And now on the T connector here, you're going to see on the opposite side of this fuse is another port for another fuse. So just go ahead and put the 30 amp in there until it seats all the way down. Just go ahead and reconnect that back into its original place. Next up, what we want to do is do the same thing, but with the 15 amp. Now that we have the two fuses connected, I've routed the wires so that way they're not going to be in the way when we go ahead and put this cover back on. We're going to go ahead and put our clips back into this shroud all the way across here. I want to say there are about 6 of them, so just throw those back on and get this secured back down. We've gone ahead and installed the driver's side headlight. The installation process is the same. Now we've just checked everything, made sure all the bulbs work, and now we're basically at a point where we can go ahead and reinstall everything, put the front bumper back together, and finish up this job.